All right, Chelsea fans, January drama is upon us. Shall we sign a striker? Pretty much need a center back. Let's dive in. All right, here we go. So January is upon us. Don't worry, we got Matt Law locked in. I'm sure Ben Jacobs will be joining at any time, but we have to focus on the here and the now. Most recently, Wes Fofana going down with an injury. Sounds like the staff want him to do surgery. He's refusing. How long is he going to be out? We got Maresca talking about the rest of the season. You couple that with Benoit Badiashile being out injured, Romeo Lavia still out injured. Our back line looks very, very vulnerable as it stands. Reece James still not fully fit and playing. Akinpong getting his Premier League debut, playing at right center back, which is great. But now you've got Tosin and Disasi on the bench. What is the future of our back line, right? I think as the transfer window heats up, that has to be exactly where the sporting directors are spending their time if they aren't already. Now, while that's good that we know exactly where we need to be, because let's see, conceded 1 to Palace, 2 to Ipswich, 2 to Fulham. Not a great run. Even if you go back before, you got 1 to Brentford, 3 to Tottenham. We're conceding way too many goals. And we know that. It's something that has to get locked in and it has to do better. And for whatever reason, whether it's Levi Colwill and a now injured Fofana, whether Tosin's come in, whether Benoit's come in, it hasn't looked tight. And you can throw Robert Sanchez into the mix as well because he's a part of that unit. Cucurella left back, great. Malagusto, fighting fitness. Reece James not really been around. Sometimes even having Malagusto slide out to the left if Cucurella is suspended or injured or out, with Disasi coming in to play right back. So again, you've got a center back playing right back. He can play right center back and back three, but we know he would much rather play centrally than out in the channels. So you got to look at the defense right away. And of course, in true Chelsea fashion, who are the defenders that Chelsea are looking at? Ironically, you have the chance to bring Trevoh Chalobah back from Palace. I hang my head, not because I don't like Trev. Trevoh's fantastic. I hang my head because we had Trevoh. Now, granted, you could say, hey, situation has changed. If Wes is out for the rest of the season, well, I'd say it doesn't matter. You still have Josh Akinpong and Disasi and Tosin, all right-footed center backs. So why do you need another? Probably because you don't think Disasi and or Tosin are really the answer. But the problem is Tosin just got here and Disasi, this is only his second season. Are you really going to move these players out 6 and 18 months respectively into their Chelsea career? Now, if you had sporting directors that were good at making the hard decisions, yeah, I think one of them moves out. But we don't. So instead, what do? Do we pick up Trevoh, take him out of his Palace team that he's playing essentially every single minute when it's not us, scoring goals right now? I mean, if you're playing it short-sighted, you pull him back where his value is going to tank. If you're playing the long game, you let Trevoh develop, have a great 12-month run at Crystal Palace, and his value it's going to be as high as it possibly can be in the near term. This is where I think it's really interesting on what they're going to do. So let's put Trevoh aside, right? Because I think they're really screwing him if they bring him back, and also just hurting themselves financially. So I think Trevoh is really a lose-lose situation. But look, I wouldn't put it past him at this point. So then you hear that we're linked to Crystal Palace's Marc Guehi, former Chelsea Academy star Marc Guehi, right? I mean, let's not pretend like wasn't at Chelsea a few seasons ago, right? When we sold him to Palace after a good loan spell with Swansea, then Palace he's in the England national team. And if like what 50, 60 million is got to be what Palace is asking for him. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's captained the side multiple times. Do we really want to spend 60 million on a center back when, again, you've got Fofana, who heavily invested? I think it was 70 million from Leicester. You got Tosin, who came out of free, but you got to pay him wages. You got Disasi, who again had a fee and is on wages. I don't get why you would need, and then with Akshimpong coming in, that's now 4 right-footed center backs. And at some points, we've even played Benoit and Colwell, 2 left-footed center backs across the back line. Unless you're moving out Tosin and Disasi, there's no sense in bringing Guehi. Which is, again, this is not the type of stopgap that you need. Now, would he be an improvement over the situation? Probably, right? In terms of aerially, physically reading the game, maybe not as good on the ball, but like knows Chelsea, probably still affectionate towards Chelsea, would check a lot of boxes, which I do find interesting. But again, it's the numbers have to be extremely high. So, but he's still on the younger side. So he broken into the England national team. I don't think too many Chelsea supporters would be upset if Marc came back, right? I think where you get blasted as a club, and maybe they don't care, is you sold him and now you're buying him back for double, right? That's the name of the game. Great. You sold a young player, no buyback clause. Now you got to pay double, maybe 2.5 times what you paid. And that's the game. But I suppose, hey, these are rich people problems. If you can afford it, great. Why not? But that's another question. Can we afford it? Looks like there's a little bit interest in Diouf, the prospect, as well. Again, too many right-footed center backs is your number one problem. And if you bring in a player, it's going to block Akshimpong. So decide what's important to you right now. I think that's where we are now in a huge issue. Tosin's not playing much. Disasi's not playing much. Akshimpong just started over both of them. Is now he going to be thrust into the situation with the new contract? Figure it out. Who's number 2? It's been a revolving door all season. And once you have a number 2, what are you doing with 3, 4, and potentially 5? That's the problem that we find ourselves in. Paying wages, paying sign-on fees, and now they're just going to sit. Figure it out, clean up the mess, and get going. One big exit that has been talked about, which I think a lot of people know, Christoph Nkunku. What's his situation? Unfortunately, the former Bundesliga Golden Boot winner can't find a way into the team. I think it's 2 parts. One part, Cole Palmer. It's a great part. It's very, very good part. One part, system, maybe. I'll have to go back and listen to what CFC Central said as we were getting ready for Maresca Ball, and he's breaking it down like who would be the players who might not fit. Like I remember hearing Ben Chilwell definitely won't fit the system, and boy, has that been true. I wonder if Nkunku fits that as well, because last season, Poch built his team around him and then didn't even get to use him, right? In the 4-2-3-1, he was the number 10. And Poch stuck with that formation in hopes that, hey, once Nkunku's there, problems go away. Well, we never got Nkunku, so all the problems persisted. So this season, Maresca maybe gets a little bit lucky with Cole, or what, but he doesn't seem to be that interested in playing him. Now with the suspension to Mudryk, and like I said, just continuing to have some injuries, I wonder if this does change some things, but it doesn't really seem like it, right? Like Nkunku didn't play at all in the last match against Ipswich. It was, he started, but he was subbed off. And so that's not a good sign, right? In terms of only getting 65 minutes against newly promoted Ipswich. Granted, that game was a disaster, losing 2-0. Neto's been in and out a little bit. Jadon Sancho's been in and out a little bit. Thankfully, Nico Jackson has been the consistent, healthy one all season. But what do? PSG seem to potentially be interested. The club don't want to sell him, so they said if anything happens, it has to come from the player side. Sounds like his agent is happy to talk about things. I'm bummed because I feel like he's such a good player. You think a good manager could find a way to put a good player in his lineup. That's where I'm confused a bit. And if it's all Cole Palmer or maybe 75% Cole, like, hey, if Cole weren't playing and Nkunku would be in that role, I could get that. Maybe it's only 25% system, but it just seems weird you can't put someone in. Now, granted, he hasn't looked that great, but also say, look at his minutes, right? Not a lot of minutes this season, which could justify he's not in a rhythm, he's not in a flow. He's just not really what we would have expected from him. And he's had a lot of injuries in this short time with Chelsea. So I think that's part of it. In the Premier League, he's played in 18 matches. He's only started 3, right? He's averaging 23 minutes per game with 414 total minutes played. Like, what do you expect out of him? If you're going to give a player 23 minutes to go do something, I don't know. Doesn't seem highly productive, but you got to figure that out. Now, he could probably get a good fee for him, right? I don't think we've really tanked his value. I still think he's highly sought after. Now, continued injuries probably aren't going to help that situation, but PSG, Ligue 1, different beast, different league, probably can manage the load a little bit better because they're not having as high of a level of competition week in, week out as they do in the Premier League. So, look, I don't think they want to let him go, but at this point, I don't think they would walk away from money because they don't think they have a lot of options to generate cash. Because that's the situation right now. Especially if you want to go get a striker, if you want to go get a center back, you have to offload some players. At some point, we've got to talk about the financial constraints again of this club, right? With PSR still here, with potential salary cap, all these different things that are being talked about. There's going to be some financial reform of the Premier League. Yeah, either Chelsea just go all in and blow it, hope you get Champions League, that one check, and then it covers all the losses, which is a big gamble, or you start to move some of the assets that you can, aka players. So, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, you think about what's going to happen with Mudryk, right? Worst case scenario, he's found positive for doping. They rip up his contract. You lose out on all that. Hope that's not the situation. Hope it was an honest mistake. You're losing sellable assets very quickly at this club. And so I think that's a huge consideration that you got to balance the books. You got to make sure you take care of the financial side of this as well. So as much as we want players in, man, you think about that loan army really inflated again this summer. So it's a lot to take into consideration. Again, leave Andre Santos over there in France. Leave him with Strasbourg. Don't mess up a good thing for him. He'll be back next season, ready to start. It'll be brilliant. But that's the only one I definitely don't want to see. Leave Trev alone. Long run, it's a win-win. And figure out who your center back option is going to be. But look, I think they have to sell 3 or 4 to bring in the right 2 players, right? You need a center back and you need a striker, but not without moving bodies first. So let me know in the comments who you think we should be signing, right? I didn't even talk about striker targets because I don't even know who you go for, right? Who do you go for to compete with Nico Jackson that isn't going to stop his momentum, stop his development, but still provide healthy competition? I think that's what's the interesting dilemma there. If it's young and hungry, or you go old vet, right, where they kind of know their role and he wants to take them under his wing. Good luck finding that situation. But that's why they get paid the big bucks. Fix the team. It's been an abysmal winter run. This team needs a little bit of life injected into them, and January is an opportunity to do that. So let me know again in the comments who we need to sign. Who do you think is a sellable asset? If you had to drop 2 out of the 3 center backs, who would they be? Man, I'm not ready for this January. We'll see. Buckle up and ride, Chelsea fans. We need string a few wins together, get this team back on track because, man, it was a lot more enjoyable until that run over the holiday sprint. So anyways, more pods. Matt Law coming at you this week. We got the preview for our upcoming matches already locked in as you know it. So much more content on the pod and more as well on YouTube. So until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.